The rain pounds my truck's roof, a relentless roar blurring the world. Emily's ring glints on the dashboard, its shine a silent accusation. Her mansion looms across the street, windows glowing like eyes in the storm. My hands tremble on the wheel. Why did she leave it? Why does my heart scream to march up there, to face whoever waits inside? A shadow moves in the doorway, their stare locking onto me. My breath catches. What have I walked into? Who's watching us? But before we continue, let me take you back to how it all began. The rain fell in torrents, turning the rural road into a river of mud and shadows. Jack's old Ford pickup rattled along, its tires hissing through puddles that shimmered under the weak glow of his headlights. The wipers screeched, barely keeping up with the deluge. At 38, Jack was a man of routine. Work at the garage, home to his quiet trailer, repeat. His lean frame and grease-stained hands told of hard work, but his hazel eyes held stories he kept locked away. Mill Creek was his refuge, a small American town where folks valued family and honest labor. But Jack's simplicity was a wall, built brick by brick after years of regrets he wouldn't name. A figure emerged on the roadside, waving desperately. A woman, drenched, her thin jacket plastered to her shivering frame. Her hair clung to her face, and her eyes gleamed with something raw. Fear, maybe, or urgency. Jack's first instinct was to drive on. Keep it simple, his mind warned. He'd learned the cost of meddling. A sister lost to choices he couldn't undo, a life he'd fled. But her trembling silhouette, alone in the storm, stirred something he couldn't ignore. He slowed, muttering under his breath, and cracked the window. "You okay?" His voice was rough, half lost in the rain's drumbeat. She stepped closer, rain streaming down her pale face. "Please," she said, her voice quivering like a taut wire. "I need a ride. Anywhere but here." Jack's stomach nodded. Her words carried weight, like she was fleeing more than the weather. "What's her story?" He wondered, scanning her soaked figure. No bag, no coat, just a desperation that felt too real. He hesitated, his old habit of staying detached clawing at him. But against his better judgment, he nodded toward the passenger seat. "Hop in." She climbed in, bringing the sharp scent of rain and a faint trace of jasmine. Her hands fumbled with the seatbelt, trembling. Jack noticed her fingers, slender, with a pale band where a ring should have been. He didn't ask. Questions led to trouble, and he'd had enough of that. "Where to?" he asked, easing the truck back onto the road. She stared out the window, her reflection a ghost in the glass. "Somewhere warm. A diner, maybe?" Jack nodded, his mind buzzing. Rosie's Diner, a 24-hour spot on the edge of Mill Creek, was closest. It was where locals gathered, swapping tales of the harvest fair or the town's tractor pull, their voices thick with pride in their tight-knit community. He didn't know this woman, but her quiet intensity unnerved him. Who runs into a storm like that? He pushed the thought down, focusing on the road. The heater hummed, barely dinning the chill. "I'm Jack," he said, breaking the heavy silence. "Emily," she murmured, her eyes flicking to the rearview mirror, like she expected a shadow to follow. Jack's grip tightened on the wheel. Her fear was a living thing, coiling in the cab. He tried to lighten the mood, his voice dry. "Gotta say, you picked a wild night for a stroll." Her lips twitched, a faint smile, but her eyes stayed distant. "Didn't have much choice." The words landed like stones, and Jack's curiosity burned. Running from what? Or who? He swallowed the question, pulling into Rosie's lot. The diner's neon sign glowed red and gold, a warm beacon in the storm. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and fried onions, the checkered floors scuffed from years of boots. Rosie, a stout woman with a quick wit and a heart bigger than her griddle, waved from the counter. "Jack, you look like you swam here." "Feels like it," he shot back, managing a grin. He led Emily to a corner booth, away from the prying eyes of late-night regulars, farmers and truckers nursing coffee and gossip. Emily slid in, her movements careful, like she was trying not to exist. Jack sat opposite, studying her. High cheekbones, a faint scar above her brow, and eyes that held a storm fiercer than the one outside. Rosie sauntered over, coffee pot in hand. "What's the order, folks?" Her gaze lingered on Emily, sharp but warm, like a mother sizing up a stray. "Coffee," Emily said softly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Same," Jack added, his eyes on Emily. "What's got you so rattled?" He thought, but he kept his tone light. "Rosie's apple pie's a town legend. Won the Harvest Fair 3 years straight." Emily's smile was thin, fleeting. "Maybe another time." Rosie raised an eyebrow, but poured their coffee and retreated. Jack leaned forward, his voice low. "Look, I don't know what's going on, and I'm not prying. But you're safe here." "Got it." Emily's eyes met his, searching, as if testing his words. "Thank you," she said, her voice catching. She sipped her coffee, her hand still trembling. Jack noticed the tan line on her ring finger again, and a chill ran through him. Married? Running from him? He pushed the thought away, but it clung like damp clothes. The diner door swung open, the bell clanging sharply. A man stepped in, tall, broad, his tailored coat dripping water. His eyes swept the room, landing on Emily with a cold intensity. Her face drained of color, her cup rattling against the saucer. Jack's pulse quickened. Trouble, his instinct screamed. The man's stare was possessive, like he owned everything he saw. "Emily," he said, his voice smooth but sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. "We need to talk." Jack's heart pounded. Her husband? Emily's hand gripped the table, her knuckles white. "Mark," she whispered, barely audible. "Not here." Mark stepped closer, his smile tight, unyielding. "You don't get to decide, sweetheart." Jack's mind raced. He wanted to stay out of it, to keep his life simple, but Emily's fear was a hook in his chest. He stood, positioning himself between them, his voice steady despite the adrenaline. "She's not alone. You got something to say. Say it to me." Mark's eyes narrowed, assessing Jack like a predator sizing up prey. "You're meddling in things you don't understand, friend," he said, his tone dripping with disdain. "Step back." Jack's jaw tightened. He'd backed down before, too many times, leaving people like his sister to face their battles alone. The regret still burned, a quiet ache in his bones. But his old flaw, hesitation, crept in. What if I'm misreading this? What if I make it worse? His hands clenched, torn between action and doubt. Emily stood, her voice firm despite her shaking frame. "Mark, leave. Now." Mark's smile didn't waver, but his eyes darkened, promising trouble. "This isn't over," he said, turning for the door. The bell jangled as he vanished into the rain. Emily sank into the booth, her breath uneven. Jack sat, his mind a tangle of questions. "Who was he?" he asked, softer now. She shook her head, tears welling. "Someone I thought I knew." Jack wanted to push, but her pain stopped him. Then he saw it. A gold ring, heavy and gleaming, left on the booth beside her. Her wedding ring, he realized, his stomach dropping. Why leave it behind? He slipped it into his pocket, its weight like a secret he wasn't ready to carry. "We should go," Emily said, standing abruptly. "He'll come back." Jack nodded, his hesitation battling a growing urge to act. He paid Rosie, ignoring her curious glance, and followed Emily to the truck. The ring burned in his pocket as they drove into the night, the rain relentless. What's this ring mean to her? He wondered, glancing at Emily's tense silhouette. The mansion on the hill, its lights piercing the storm, lingered in his mind. Something told him this was only the start. The rain hadn't let up, a ceaseless drumbeat against the truck's roof as Jack drove Emily away from Rosie's diner. Her words, "He'll come back," hung in the air, heavy as the ring in his pocket. Jack glanced at her, her face pale, eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. Where do I even take her? He wondered, his mind a tangle of doubt and duty. He'd wanted to ask more at the diner, to unravel the fear in her voice, but her silence was a wall he couldn't breach. "There's a motel a few miles out," he said, voice steady despite the unease gnawing at him. "You can stay there tonight." Emily nodded, barely audible. "Thank you, Jack." Her gratitude felt fragile, like glass about to crack. Jack's fingers brushed the ring in his pocket, its cold weight a reminder of the mystery he'd stumbled into. Why leave it behind? The question burned, but he pushed it down, focusing on the road. The storm blurred Mill Creek's edges, the town's familiar streets turning alien in the dark. They passed the old grain mill, a relic of the town's farming roots, where folks gathered each fall for the Harvest Fair's pie contest and tractor pull. The memory of those community nights, laughter, music, the smell of cider, felt distant now, overshadowed by the tension in the cab. Jack's thoughts churned. I should drop her off and walk away. Keep it simple. But the image of Mark's cold smile in the diner lingered, and Jack's old flaw, hesitation, battled a growing need to act. He'd failed to step up before, years ago, when his sister needed him. The regret was a scar he carried, one he wasn't ready to reopen. Turn here, Emily said suddenly, pointing to a narrow road veering into the woods. Jack frowned, the turn unfamiliar. That's just an old logging path. Leads to nowhere. Please, she said, her voice sharp with urgency. I know a place. It's safe. Her eyes met his, pleading, and Jack's gut twisted. Safe from what? He wanted to argue, to stick to the motel plan, but her fear was a hook, pulling him in. Against his better judgment, he turned onto the muddy path, the truck's tires slipping as branches scraped the sides. The headlights carved through the dark, revealing an abandoned warehouse, its rusted walls looming like a forgotten giant. Mill Creek's logging days were long gone, leaving structures like this to rot. Why here? Jack thought, his unease deepening. He parked near the entrance, the rain a dull roar. This is your safe place? He asked, half joking, hoping to ease the tension. Emily's lips twitched, but her eyes stayed haunted. It's somewhere he won't look. Jack's mind raced. Mark. The man's name was a shadow between them. He followed Emily inside, the warehouse's air thick with dust and the tang of old metal. Broken crates littered the floor, and moonlight spilled through cracked skylights, casting jagged shadows. Emily moved with purpose, leading him to a corner where a tarp covered something bulky. She pulled it back, revealing a stack of boxes, some marked with faded logos, others sealed tight. What's this? Jack asked, his voice echoing in the vast space. Proof, Emily said, her voice low but fierce. Of what he's done. Jack's pulse quickened. Proof of what? Before he could ask, a noise cut through the silence, tires crunching on gravel outside. Headlights flashed through the warehouse's broken windows, and Emily froze, her breath catching. Jack's instincts screamed trouble. He grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a stack of crates. Stay down, he whispered. The warehouse door creaked open, and footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate. Jack peered through a gap in the crates, his heart pounding. Mark stepped into the moonlight, his tailored coat out of place in the grimy space. But he wasn't alone. Another figure followed. Tom, Jack's old friend from the garage, his lanky frame unmistakable. Jack's stomach dropped. Tom? Here? Check the corners, Mark said, his voice calm but commanding. She's here somewhere. Tom nodded, his face tight, almost reluctant. Jack's mind reeled. He'd known Tom for years, shared beers, fixed cars, swapped stories about Mill Creek's glory days. Why is he with Mark? The betrayal stung, sharp and sudden, like a blade he hadn't seen coming. Emily's hand gripped his, her fingers cold. Her eyes were wide, silently asking, what now? Jack's thoughts spun. He'd hesitated in the diner, letting Mark walk away, and now his indecision had led them here cornered. I should have pushed harder, gotten answers. His flaw, always holding back, keeping life at arm's length, was costing them now. He leaned close to Emily, his voice a whisper. What's in those boxes? Her breath hitched. Documents. Contracts. Proof Mark's been skimming town funds, rigging bids for his construction firm. I found in his office. That's why I ran. Jack's jaw tightened. Corruption. Mark wasn't just a controlling husband. He was a crook, bleeding Mill Creek dry. The town's struggles, closed shops, crumbling roads, suddenly made sense. Jack's anger flared, but so did his doubt. Can I trust her? What if she's playing me? He pushed the thought away, focusing on the moment. They needed to move. We need to get those boxes out, he whispered. But we're trapped. Emily's eyes darted to a rusted ladder leading to a catwalk above. Up there, there's a side exit. Jack nodded, his heart racing. They crept toward the ladder, every creak of the floorboards like a shout in the silence. Mark's voice echoed closer, his footsteps deliberate. "Emily, come out. You're only making this harder." Jack's chest tightened. He wanted to confront Mark, to end this now, but his hesitation, the fear of making things worse, held him back. Not again, he thought, clenching his fists. He helped Emily onto the ladder, her movements shaky but determined. They climbed, the metal groaning under their weight, and reached the catwalk. The side exit was close, a faint outline in the wall, but Tom's voice stopped them cold. "Jack," Tom called, his tone uncertain. "You here, man?" Jack froze, his breath catching. "He knows I'm involved?" The betrayal cut deeper now, twisting like a knife. Tom had been at the garage when Jack left, had seen him drive off. Did he tip Mark off? Jack's mind flashed to their last conversation. Tom asking about his plans, his tone too casual. The realization hit like a punch. Tom had sold him out. Emily's hand squeezed his, pulling him back. "We have to go," she whispered, her eyes pleading. Jack nodded, shoving his anger down. They reached the exit, a rusted door that squealed as they pushed it open. The rain greeted them, cold and relentless, as they slipped outside. Jack's truck was still there, but headlights flashed nearby. Another vehicle, blocking the path. Mark's men? Jack's heart sank. They were cornered again. "Over there," Emily said, pointing to a ditch hidden by overgrown weeds. They scrambled down, mud soaking their clothes, and crouched low. Jack's mind raced. I should have seen this coming. I should have asked more questions. His hesitation had led them here, and now Tom's betrayal added another layer of danger. He glanced at Emily, her face streaked with mud, her eyes fierce despite her fear. She's tougher than she looks, he thought, a spark of admiration cutting through his doubt. "What now?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. Jack's hand closed around the ring in his pocket, its weight grounding him. "We get those boxes later. Right now, we disappear." They moved through the woods, branches snagging their clothes. Jack's thoughts were a storm. Anger at Tom, worry for Emily, and a growing resolve to fix this. "I can't keep running from trouble," he told himself, his sister's face flashing in his mind. He'd failed her by staying silent, by hesitating. Not this time. They reached a clearing, the lights of Mill Creek faint in the distance. Emily stopped, her breath ragged. "Jack, I'm sorry I drag you into this." He shook his head, his voice firm. "You didn't. I chose to stop." Her eyes searched his, a flicker of hope breaking through her fear. "Why?" Jack hesitated, the truth clawing at him. "Because I'm tired of standing by." But before he could answer, a flashlight beam cut through the trees, and Mark's voice called out, closer than before. "Emily, you can't hide forever." Jack's heart pounded. They were out of time. The flashlight beam sliced through the rain-soaked woods, Mark's voice echoing like a predator's call. "Emily, you can't hide forever." Jack's pulse thundered, his hand tight around Emily's as they crouched in the ditch, mud clinging to their clothes. The beam swept closer, and Jack's mind raced. He's too close. He pulled Emily deeper into the shadows, his breath shallow. "Stay low," he whispered, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. They slipped through the underbrush, the wet leaves muffling their steps, until the flashlight's glow faded behind them. For now, they'd escaped. Jack's truck was a distant hope, blocked by Mark's men, so they moved toward Mill Creek's town square, where the Harvest Fair's lights twinkled faintly through the storm. The fair was the heart of the town, a yearly celebration of hard work and togetherness. Booths of homemade jams, kids chasing fireflies, and old-timers swapping stories of better days. Jack's chest ached at the thought. That's what we're fighting for, he realized, the town spirit pulling him forward like a lifeline. They emerged from the woods, the rain easing to a drizzle as the square came into view. Strings of lights crisscrossed above, casting a warm glow over the bustling fair. Booths lined the cobblestone paths, their awnings sagging with water, while the scent of fried dough and cider hung thick in the air. Families laughed, oblivious to the storm's lingering threat. Jack's eyes scanned the crowd, his nerves taut. "Mark's out there. Somewhere. Emily's hand trembled in his, her face streaked with mud, but resolute. "We can't stay here," she said, her voice low. "He'll find us." Jack nodded, his mind churning. The ring in his pocket felt heavier than ever, a silent question he hadn't answered. Why did she leave it? His hesitation, his old flaw, still lingered, whispering doubts. What if I'm in over my head? But Emily's courage, her willingness to face Mark despite her fear, stirred something in him. He'd run from trouble before, left his sister to her fate, and the guilt still burned. Not this time, he thought, clenching his jaw. "We need those documents," Emily said, her eyes fierce. "They're the only way to stop him." Jack's thoughts flashed to the warehouse, the boxes of proof, Mark's corruption, his theft from the town. If we get those, we can end this. But the fair was no place for a standoff, not with families and kids around. He needed a plan, and fast. His gaze landed on Rosie, the diner owner, manning a pie booth nearby. Her sharp eyes met his, and she waved him over, her apron dusted with flour. "Jack, you look like you've seen a ghost," Rosie said, her tone half joking, half concerned. She glanced at Emily, her brow furrowing. "What's going on?" Jack hesitated, the weight of Tom's betrayal still raw. "Can I trust her?" But Rosie was Mill Creek's backbone, always there with coffee and a kind word. He leaned close, voice low. "We need help, Rosie. Emily's in trouble. Her husband, Mark, he's not who he seems." Rosie's eyes narrowed, glancing at Emily's tense frame. "Mark Thompson? That slick councilman? Always thought he was too polished for this town." Emily nodded, her voice shaking but firm. "He's been stealing from Mill Creek. I have proof, but he's after me." Rosie's face hardened. "This town's been struggling too long. If you've got something on him, I'm in." She gestured to a group of locals nearby. Farmers, shopkeepers, people Jack had known for years. "We take care of our own." Jack's chest warmed, the town's spirit wrapping around him like a quilt. But doubt lingered. What if we fail? He pushed it down, turning to Emily. "We need to get back to the warehouse. Get those documents before Mark does." Emily's eyes widened. "He'll have men there." "I know," Jack said, his voice steady now. "But we've got no choice." Rosie handed them a set of keys. "Take my van. It's parked behind a cider stand. I'll spread the word. Mark won't move through this crowd unnoticed." Jack's throat tightened. Community. This is what it means. He nodded, grateful, and led Emily to the van, a beat-up old thing that smelled of apples and grease. As they drove back toward the warehouse, the rain picked up again, a low rumble in the night. Jack's mind raced, piecing together a plan. Get in, grab the boxes, get out. Simple, but nothing about this felt simple. They reached the warehouse, its rusted walls darker now, like a beast waiting in the storm. Jack parked a distance away, scanning for Mark's men. The lot was empty, but the silence felt wrong. Too still, like the air before a lightning strike. He turned to Emily, her face pale but determined. "Stay close," he said. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of shadows, the moonlight weaker now, swallowed by clouds. Jack's boots echoed on the concrete, each step a reminder of the risk. Emily led him to the boxes, still hidden under the tarp. They worked quickly, stacking them near the side exit, but Jack's heart sank as he noticed one box open, paper scattered. "Someone's been here." A voice cut through the dark. "You're predictable, Emily." Mark stepped from the shadows, his coat pristine despite the mud. His smile was cold, confident, like a man who'd already won. "You think those papers will save you?" Jack's blood boiled, but his hesitation flared. "Can we outrun him?" Emily stood firm, her voice steady. "They'll show everyone who you are, Mark. A thief. A liar." Mark's laugh was sharp, cutting. "And you think this town will care? They're too busy with their fairs and pies to notice." Jack's fists clenched. He's wrong. Mill Creek was more than that. It was family, trust, the kind of place that fought for its own. His hesitation, the flaw that had cost him so much, finally snapped. "They'll care," he said, stepping forward. "Because we'll make them." Mark's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, another figure emerged. Tom, his face pale, hands fidgeting. "Jack, I didn't have a choice," he stammered. "Mark, he threatened my family." Jack's heart twisted, anger mixing with pity. Another betrayal. But Tom's words held a truth he couldn't ignore. Fear drove people to desperate choices. Jack had seen it before, in himself, in his sister. "You could have told me," he said, his voice low, wounded. Emily grabbed his arm. "Jack, we have to go. Now." But Mark moved faster, blocking the exit. "You're not leaving with those," he said, his tone icy. "This ends here." Jack's mind raced, the ring in his pocket a burning weight. The ring. The realization hit like a spark. Emily hadn't left it by accident. It was a message, a rebellion against Mark's control, a symbol of her fight for freedom. Jack pulled it out, holding it up. "This is why you're scared, isn't it? She's done with you." Mark's face darkened, a crack in his composure. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I do," Jack said, his voice steady, a wry grin breaking through. "You're not as untouchable as you think." He tossed the ring at Mark's feet, a distraction, and grabbed Emily's hand. They bolted for the exit, boxes in tow, as Mark lunged after them. Outside, Rosie's van roared to life, but headlights flared. Mark's men, closing in. Jack's heart pounded, but then he saw them. Townsfolk from the fair, led by Rosie, their trucks and cars forming a blockade. Shouts filled the air, a chorus of defiance. "We know what you did, Thompson," Rosie yelled, her voice carrying over the rain. Mark froze, outnumbered, his control slipping. Jack's chest swelled with pride. "This is Mill Creek." He and Emily loaded the boxes into the van, the crowd holding Mark at bay. They drove back to the square, the documents safe, the town's spirit alive in every face around them. At the fair, under the twinkling lights, Jack handed the boxes to Rosie, who promised to get them to the sheriff. Emily turned to him, tears in her eyes. "I didn't think anyone would believe me." Jack smiled, softer now. "You gave them a reason to." He handed her the ring, now a symbol of her strength. "Keep it, or don't. Your choice." She slipped it into her pocket, her smile small but real. "Thank you, Jack, for everything." The fair hummed around them, a reminder of second chances. Jack's heart was lighter, his hesitation gone. He'd faced his past, his flaws, and found something worth fighting for. The road ahead wasn't easy. Mark's influence lingered, and Emily's healing would take time. But for now, they'd won. Subscribe to the channel to see more soul-stirring stories.